was one time a Thursday night before Pesach, and I went out to visit a Yiddish inmate in Otisville prison. And I was waiting in the waiting room, he should come in. And the other family was in front of me on the next bench. And the mother opened up a shopping bag, took out Haggadahs, what they got from the teachers, for small kids. And all the kids, they took their Haggadahs, and they were started to say for the father, Manishtano. And, you know, it was a horrible scene. The mother, she wasn't able to take it anymore. She started to cry. And that time I figured, I'm gonna go home. I will be sitting on a kittel in a beautiful Seder. Those kids, look what they're going through. I felt no more, I'm gonna jump in. We have to do something.
My husband got incarcerated, trialed and sentenced to a very harsh 240-month in federal prison in July 2015. And obviously, it just turned our lives upside down. For everybody, the whole family, for him, for our children. It seems very surreal. Even today, 3 years later, I wake up sometimes and I say, am I still dreaming? Like, is it ever gonna end? It's very hard to put it all in a brief story, but it's a very sad and very unjust story. And you would never think that it would happen to you. We never had anything to do with the law. We're just very peaceful people. We just looking to raise our kids in the way of Torah. And it just all happened, and it ended up in a very unfortunate and very tough situation.
As I used to go to prison to speak to people there and meet some family members, somebody came over to me and gave me a note. He told me, I know you want to do something big to enhance the system, to do something in criminal justice reform. Take this note. I walked out of prison. I saw on the paper Tzvi Boyarsky with his cell phone number.
Moshe was incredibly passionate, and his dedication was beyond inspiring. This concept was absolutely brilliant and long overdue, and Moshe was committed to seeing it through with God's help, recognizing the incredible impact this would have on thousands of families.
And we were looking for a lobbyist. Tzvi knew Pat Nolan, so he told us, you want a good lobbyist? Hire Greg Mitchell.
They told me why they were doing this, like why were they interested in federal prison reform? So for me, I immediately saw that it would be better for society if we were able to come up with a way where they could earn their way out of that prison bed earlier, get back home to their wives and their 10 kids or so. I said, hey, we really should bring Brett Tolman into this, and so I introduced Brett to them.
So it was almost a whole year what we didn't see any progress. We didn't know it's working, it's not working, we're getting anywhere. But when we got a hearing and we saw Brett Tolman is on the schedule to be testifying, then we knew we made the right choice.
If we will not use a one-size-fits-all approach, but instead categorize our federal inmates according to their risk of recidivism.
So since we saw that the Republicans are getting on board and Democrats are starting to move away, they don't want to support a prison reform only bill, we figured we need to get on board other lobbyist group. We're looking around for a big lobbyist group, so someone introduced us to the Podesta group.
Sean McLaughlin was the one that we were working with at the Podesta group, and Brett and I both like him a lot. Sean set up the first meeting that Brett and I went in and had with the chairman's crime subcommittee staff. You know, and he set up, you know, so he set up a few meetings for us and went with us too So he was part of the team definitely for a while.
The first sponsor of this bill was Congressman Jason Chaffetz from Utah, and he recognized yes, these are people who may have committed crimes and they're in prison, but they're human beings. And it's in society's best interest, and it's the American and humane thing to do, to give them these programs, to give them these tools to be able to succeed so that they successfully re-enter society.
So Chaffetz introduces the House bill in July 2013. Cornyn and Lee and Hatch continued to evolve the language a bit on the Senate bill, and they introduced later in I think it was December 2013.
So at that time, we finally have Republican senators not only verbally telling us they're willing to support the bill, they actually were co-sponsoring a prison reform bill. We got 3 very respectful Judiciary Committee members signing on a prison reform bill. It was great news.
The prison reform bill that they had marked up separately after that, a few weeks later, and it passed 15-2. And the only 2 no votes were Sessions and Feinstein, 1 on each side.
We were hoping the bill should go down on the floor, but the leader, Harry Reid, decided no way, it's not going anywhere, only if this bill will be combined with other sentencing reforms.
The Democrats were demanding sentencing reform be attached to prison reform to go to the floor. But there was not enough consensus and not enough support on the Republican side to do that. Because there were 5 no votes on the Republican side on the Smarter Sentencing Act. And so they never made it to, neither bill made it to the Senate floor in 2014.
It was a very tough time. It was a very tough time. Almost nobody wants to give money. In that time we borrowed. We were hoping for some good news.
You have to persist though, you can't give up. Because what we did is we started over again in 2015.
So we knew this bill is not going anywhere, only if we're gonna combine it with some sentencing reform.
And they spent 6 months doing that and coming up. And they did make some modifications to the prison reform bill, but that's what they introduced in October 2015, and they call it the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act.
Our conversation brought together a unique group of senators who wanted to create a proposal that would address major needs in the country's sentencing and correction system. The result was a historic reform bill that passed the Judiciary Committee 15-5.
But what happened was that the election year came in.
Then Trump surprises people, gets elected. And so then everyone at first was pessimistic. And some people were even depressed thinking, oh my gosh, because he ran as a law and order president. Tough on crime, pro law enforcement, that he was going to stick with them. So a lot of people didn't think he would do any criminal justice reform.
When he appointed Jeff Sessions to be his Attorney General, we knew there's no way. There was a waste of time to do any lobbying.
He was so vocal in his opposition that he generated opposition on the Republican side to the package in 2016. And again, so you put Trump and his law and order rhetoric, and with Sessions, and a lot of people thought, we're not going to get anything. Nothing's going to move in 2017 and 18.
But if we don't get tough on the drug dealers, we're wasting our time. Just remember that. We're wasting our time.
Today, I want to discuss the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act that has been voted out of the Judiciary Committee. We should not grant early release to thousands of drug traffickers and other violent criminals, nor should we shorten their sentences in the future.
In that time, donors told me, Moshe, you're spinning your wheels. Just walk away. It was enough. You did your share. That's it.
I didn't think like that though, because I knew, I was still confident that we could put together an effort. I thought we had to go, I was thinking we had to narrow the sentencing reforms or even go prison reform only, but I was confident that we would still at least get a prison reform bill moving. And we all knew the House had to go first this time.
But Chaffetz was gone. Chaffetz was resigning from politics. He went to private life and he was not there anymore. And one day Greg calls me up, Moshe, I have good news for you. Congressman Collins is willing to co-sponsor the bill. And I believe he's a good champion. He's the type of guy who gets things done.
The bill that Jason actually started, we took the very bare bones of, and it's expanded greatly since that point. I appreciate Jason. When he left, we got the bill. And then since then, through the work that Hakeem and I have, and it's been a very special relationship.
We've been working with Jared and his team at the White House and working with the congressional champions on both sides. Doug Collins, Hakeem Jeffries. Awesome, just like the best champions you could have in the House.
He came up with the name First Step Act. Let's start to do step by step. We'll do sentencing when the time will allow, when the time will be the right time, we'll do more. But those families are suffering, let's do something now.
And the First Step Act will provide that. It will give them an opportunity to get educated now. Give them an opportunity to get vocational training now. A GED now. A college education now. To give them the opportunity to deal with their substance abuse problem now. Mental health counseling now. Why would we possibly refuse that?
When I look at this bill, and I know Hakeem feels the same way, when we look at this bill, we see the faces behind the letters. We see the folks who are in prison right now who can be helped by it. We see those that we know are going to prison, unfortunately, because of choices that they're going to make in their life. And we say, what can we do right now? This is actually a bill that helps people now.
I remember meeting Gary because he insisted on bringing over a check to help a person before he left town. And when we were speaking, he was talking about, he saw that Shalom Rabashin came up and he insisted on getting involved. And after he met Shalom's daughter, he literally stopped his entire practice, and he was the lead attorney that restructured General Motors, had 500 attorneys working for him, and he stopped his entire practice to help Shalom Mordechai get out. And he worked in it for 4.5 years pro bono. As a result of that experience, he just couldn't go back to corporate work. He says, my shlichus in life is to help those in need. And he's doing that in the most incredible way, following in his father's footsteps.
They got the prison reform bill done in May. We passed it 360 to 59, if you can believe that.
This bill is real and meaningful reform. Senator Corner and Senator Whitehouse across the way in the Senate have taken steps to actually have introduced the same bill and are working to do this.
When we saw the numbers, we were all surprised. It was an amazing news, an amazing time.
Working together, we can restore the rule of law, keep dangerous criminals off our streets, and help former inmates get a second chance at life, and a second chance that many of them will really succeed at, if only given the chance. America is a nation that believes in the power of redemption.
Trump says he supports a bipartisan prison reform bill called the First Step Act, which would place federal prisoners closer to home, allow more home confinement for lower-level offenders, and expand prison employment programs.
I remember visiting people in prison, and sometimes the first question was, where's the bill holding? What's the update of the bill? The hope that this bill has given, with God's help, to so many families is unbelievable.
I remember being up in Brooklyn, in the Williamsburg neighborhood, walking with Rabbi Moshe Margaretin and looking at all the kids walking around, looking at the mothers and kids walking around in their neighborhood. you know, and that's who we're all doing this for. You know, you've got a good group of rabbis that I've worked with. You know, Brett and I have worked with for years, and you know, I view them as family now.
We have a tremendous hakaras hatov to everyone who stepped up to the plate and really gave of their time, of their resources, and gave with heart and soul throughout this process.
And people who have been sending money to help this lobbying effort are the same as those who are actually carrying the bills, who are actually going for it. We're a team effort on this, and if any one of that team stops, then the process stops.
Without the community, I would have never got to this point. They were always behind me, supporting me financially, emotionally. They were always giving me the help, whatever I need. And thanks, they are equal partners in this process.
Moshe Margaretin has done more as an individual, but as a community, this is the community that's done more than anybody on the planet. So we have to see it through. We cannot just you know, drop it and give up when we're down at the 2-yard line. Let's see it through.
And hopefully we'll see soon that people, fathers and mothers and their children are being united again. Thanks to your help.